build it up in the backyard is kind of something that my parents like coined with me growing up. When I started out in rec sports and then started getting to middle school and wanted to go competitive and select like other people, my parents had a rule and they said, if you can show you're going to put the time in on your own, then we'll let you do select sports, because obviously it's a lot more of a time commitment, it's a lot of money, and you have to be willing to work hard. And so, I mean, like I would be in the backyard running drills for soccer predominantly or hitting for softball, and then they're like, okay, like we can try out for a select team. But their rule was always making sure that I was willing to put the time in without someone being there, or without it, quote, mattering or getting recognized. And I mean, you hear about the greats, like, do they put the time in? Obviously, when I was 13, I wasn't trying to win some national championship, but they wanted those principles to be there of how hard are you willing to work. Out of high school, my mom was a track volleyball star and then played tennis in college because she decided she wanted to. And my dad jokes like, yeah, your mom would spend hours in this alleyway hitting tennis balls to herself. I never got to hang out with her. And I think that's pretty cool, because how many people are willing to switch a sport and spend the hours? And then just growing up, she's had injuries and she showed the resilience in coming out of an injury when something's important to you. And I've personally had those experiences. And so she's been a really good sounding board of like your why, like why do you get back into it? And then as a mom, she's always supportive. She's always been there when I've had a hard day, or she's always reminded me to love the experiences. And in my athletic career, not all things have netted out the way I wanted. And she always reminds me of looking at the simple moments and looking at the happy moments and enjoying the experience, because it's a blessing to be a D1 athlete and get to go through these 4 years, all the hurt and all the work and all the good times. And she just always reminds me to appreciate those experiences. And so I'm really glad that I've had like that kind of mindset growing up. I got into sports kind of like a lot of people, starting out in t-ball, and just my parents wanted to give me something to do, but then I found my own interest in it, and my parents were really supportive of that, and they supported my siblings on anything, whether or not it was sports, and so the fact that I found my love in that, I just really love the competitive atmosphere and the environment that my work was reciprocated in the results, and that I was able to work as hard and get as better as I wanted to be, and being able to see those results. And it's always fun to see the incremental success, or to have that win, or to have that PR. And so I really just kind of like loved that good, better, best mindset of always striving for better. And it was a really good avenue for me to like let off steam or to stay in shape. And it just kind of became like, I guess, a joy outlet of if I was happy, I wanted to go do something. If I was sad, I wanted to go feel better. Or if I was upset, like go let off steam. Like it just kind of became a really good avenue for me. Yeah, there's definitely maybe a lack of interest. I feel like female sports, when they're doing really, really good, like you're paying attention, and all these national teams, like when they're the best, everyone's like, oh, I love them. Where in male sports, they've been around a lot longer, or people just have this love and tie to them of they don't care if their team is trash, they're going to support them, but they maybe don't have a go-to women's team. Like people have their MLB or NFL teams, but how many people have a WNBA team if they're not a basketball player? So there's just kind of a disparity of the interest in it. People acknowledge them and they know they're there, but they might not seek out going to games or watching and supporting them in that sense. To me, being a woman in sports is, I guess, a challenge for myself. I feel like a lot of times women's sports talk about being empowered, and I fully support that because you're pushing your body to the limit and you're striving for more and you're showing what you're capable of. I sometimes feel like it takes like the feminine, like being feminine out of a woman, because you're getting muscular and you're getting nitty gritty and you're sweaty and you're gross and you're not looking cute all the time. And I don't think that should be the case, because I think like you're showing like what you can do and what your body is capable and how hard you're willing to work. And it's also a mental capacity of, I just think that like it's very much like this is how strong I am mentally, physically. And I mean, like it kind of like feels elevated of like, wow, I'm really proud of myself. And it's a way that you can just empower yourself more individually and other women while you're in sports. I hope that any younger girls or future female athletes who look at me athletically are inspired, first and foremost. But I hope it's not just because of my athletic ability, it's because of how I carry myself. I know now and growing up, I always was super impressed with people, or I gravitated towards Olympians or professional athletes who people were like, wow, they're just such a well-rounded person, or their attitude on the track matched their personality off the track, and they were a quality, kind person. And their athletic ability was part of them, but it didn't define them. And I always really admired that. And so like taking that work ethic and always striving for excellence on the track or on the field or in the weight room is awesome. But are you consistent outside of that? And so I hope that I portray that to future student athletes, and I help them learn how to always work hard no matter what area of their life it is. I think Title IX has definitely helped with leveling the playing field. I mean, the last 50 years, the start of women's sports at different universities, I mean, Western Kentucky, even softball and soccer, like those aren't more than 20-something years old. Female sports are still a newer concept in some areas, and I think Title IX's really helped with making the environment for it to be equal. But I definitely think that there is still pushes that can be made on campuses, in workplaces, and just on sports in general, like showing that support. I think Title IX has really helped to show the support and say we back our female athletes and our female staff and female students. But it's just new. And so the longer it's around, I think the more common and normal and maybe less of a new idea. And it's just going to be something that is an everyday kind of thing. In my perfect world, female sports get the same support as male sports. I think that it's a different level of interest, and you're just appreciating athletes for their athletic ability, period, whether they're male, female, doing good, bad, because athletes put the time in and day out, and getting community support is amazing. I think that Title IX is a backbone for that support, and I think as they continue to show that athletes are athletes regardless of their gender, and just showing the support of like these people work really hard for their sport. I don't know how that happens, but I think especially like at Western, like the Women's Legacy Fund, female sports have not been around as long as male sports, and so I think the Women's Legacy Fund is really going to help with almost accelerating that to get to that equal interest level. And I don't know. I just think it's more of what's the intent behind it, not having Title IX because, you need to and you need to have it equal, but having Title IX because we truly support women in the workplace, on the track, on the field, in the classroom. And so you're going to show that like this is the standard instead of it being implemented because it needs to correct something, but regardless of like we're going to live up to this standard.